There are monks walking across America right now, not running, not hiding, walking slowly, deliberately, for peace. No signs, no shouting, no demands. Just their feet and silence. And somehow, this makes it impossible to ignore. They're not trying to win an argument. They're not asking anyone to agree with them. And that's what makes it uncomfortable, because it forces the question not who is right, but what world are we becoming? Timing matters. They are walking while everything else accelerates, while headlines refresh by the minute, while breaking news is replaced by the last breaking news, while attention is pulled forward and then forward again. Nothing settles. They're walking while chaos is explained, justified, argued over, replayed from different angles, each version louder than the last. They're walking while response is expected immediately. Say something, post something, choose a side, react now or be irrelevant. Silence is treated like absence. Walking doesn't compete with any of that. It doesn't rush. It doesn't react. It doesn't adjust to the pace of the moment. You can't speed it up. You can't compress it into a clip to make sense. You can't turn it into an escalation. Walking doesn't argue back. It doesn't counter. It doesn't persuade. It simply continues. One step, then another. And because it doesn't escalate, because it refuses the rhythm of the moment, it interrupts. Not loudly, not forcefully, completely. In a culture trained to move faster, something that refuses to speed up is impossible to ignore. This isn't protest in the modern sense. There are no demands, no slogans, no enemy being named, no attempt to dominate attention or force a reaction. Nothing here is designed to go viral. There's no moment to spike an outrage, no call to pressure institutions, no effort to win the day. And in a culture where impact is measured by volume, it looks like nothing is happening. But this isn't passivity either. Walking takes discipline, it takes endurance, it takes commitment, especially when there's no applause, especially when there's no cameras at the end of the finish line. This kind of walking asks something different. You have to show up again the next day and the day after that. No urgency, no emotional release, just continuation. And this is what separates it from reaction. Reaction burns hot and fast. Walking burns slowly. It requires restraint. It requires choosing effort over noise, choosing consistency over response. In moments where reaction is rewarded, restraint becomes visible. Not because it announces itself, but because it refuses to compete. The walk doesn't argue with the moment, it moves alongside it. And by doing that, it shows us something that most people have forgotten how to practice. Giving something the time it needs to matter. Throughout history, walking has carried meaning, not because it's dramatic, not because it draws attention, but because it's sustained. Walking has been how people showed seriousness. When something mattered enough to stay with, people walked. Pilgrims walked for spiritual clarity, hundreds of miles on foot, not for convenience, but for transformation. The journey itself became the answer. Gandhi walked for independence, 240 miles to the sea, not to demand change faster, but to embody the patience required to receive it. Martin Luther King walked for dignity, from Selma to Montgomery, 54 miles over 5 days. Not because walking was efficient, but because it demonstrated a resolve that words alone couldn't carry. These movements didn't rely on a single moment. They relied on repetition, step after step, day after day, sometimes watched, most times unseen. Walking doesn't persuade through force. It persuades through presence. It says, I'm willing to stay with this. Not for applause, not for speed, but because it matters. That's why walking shows up in human history over and over again. When people needed clarity, when they needed to be grounded, when they needed to slow something down, including themselves, they walked. What's happening now isn't new. It's old. It's very old. And that's exactly why it feels unfamiliar. We expect meaning to arrive quickly. We expect impact to be immediate. But walking refuses these expectations. It doesn't hurry to explain itself. It waits for understanding to catch up. Chaos demands judgment. It pulls the nervous system forward. It narrows attention. It accelerates judgment. When chaos appears, the body prepares. Heart rate rises. Breathing shortens. Thoughts move faster than understanding. Everything pushes forward towards a response. Choose a side. Say something. Do something. Now. Stillness does something else. It interrupts the reflex. It slows down the moment. Not to ignore what's happening, but to stop being carried by it. Stillness creates space. Space to notice what you're feeling. Space to notice what you're being pulled toward. Space between stimulus and action. That space is rare. And because it's rare, it feels unfamiliar. These monks are not responding with force. They're not trying to overpower anything. They're responding with presence, with their bodies moving at the same pace, regardless of what is happening around them. Presence doesn't argue, it doesn't escalate, it doesn't compete for attention, it just remains. For many people, it's hard to read because we've learned to interpret seriousness through intensity, through volume, through urgency. Stillness doesn't speak that way. It speaks more quietly. And because of that, many people have forgotten how to hear it. There's a reason why this walk unsettles people. Not because it's loud, not because it's confrontational, but because it doesn't guide your reaction. It doesn't tell you what to think. It doesn't tell you who to blame. It doesn't tell you what to post. There's no clear opposition to adopt. No language handed to you. No pre-written response. Instead, it leaves space. And space can feel exposing. Because when nothing rushes in to fill the moment, you become aware of what you've been carrying, your own speed, that pace you've gotten used to, the way urgency feels normal now, your own certainty, the need to be right, the need to have an answer ready, the discomfort of not knowing what to say, and sometimes your own anger, that tension sitting just beneath the surface, waiting for something to react to. Quiet actions don't provoke directly. They don't accuse. They don't point. But they do something more subtle. They remove distractions. And in a culture trained to react instantly, anything that slows down the moment feels like judgment, even when there isn't, even when no judgment is being offered. Because stillness doesn't tell you what to do, it asks you to notice. The question isn't whether walking for peace works. That's not really the point. The question is why it feels so rare, why an action this simple feels unusual now, why it stands out, why patience is read as weakness, why restraint feels outdated, while slowing down is mistaken for disengagement, or worse, indifference. Somewhere along the way, speed became proof of seriousness. Urgency became credibility. Reaction became responsibility. So when something refuses that rhythm, we don't know how to interpret it. But this walk is not trying to convince anyone. It's not asking for agreement. It's not competing for attention. It's just revealing something about what we notice, about what we reward, about how we become uncomfortable with stillness. And right now, as this is playing, they're still walking. No guarantees, no applause, no finish line waiting for them. Just steps taken one at a time. In a country that keeps choosing speed again and again, that contrast is worth sitting with.